Hello, my name is Shanna Bigler, and I'm the Education Program Consultant for Mental Health for the Kansas State Department of Education. Today I would like to review the discipline data collection that is due at the end of this school year. The discipline data collection is typically completed by a principal or data clerk. Many school districts put the completion of the discipline data collection on an end-of-year checklist for whomever is responsible for completing it, typically the principal, prior to that person leaving for the summer. District administration should also have access to view the discipline data and run discipline reports to check for accuracy. It is highly recommended that directors of special education review the data prior to submission to assist in verifying a student's IDEA identification at the time of the discipline event. You can find all the discipline information on the website listed on the screen. All discipline data is entered into the Kansas Integrated Accountability System, KSDE. Discipline data collection requires specific elements. All accredited school buildings are required to report on the following components for students which they are responsible: bullying, felonies, misdemeanors, and referrals to law enforcement, firearms, all disciplinary removals for students with a disability, all disciplinary removals for students engaged with the foster care system, violence-related expulsion, and services during expulsions. Students with alternative placements must also be reported through their accountability responsible building. For example, if a student is attending a psychiatric residential treatment facility, PRTF, and engages in a reportable discipline incident, the details of the incident must be sent back to the student's accountability report for the submission. That information needs to go to the school to be reported. Bullying must be selected by the type of bullying from 4 different categories: physical, cyber, verbal, and/or relational. Discipline outcomes must be identified by in-school suspension, ISS, out-of-school suspension, OSS, expulsion, or other. Other bullying outcomes could refer to counseling session, phone calls home, or peer mediation. In the event of felonies, misdemeanors, and referrals to law enforcement, if an incident results in a report to law enforcement, the location of this incident must be selected and users must indicate whether an arrest or referral was a result of the report to law enforcement. Further, firearms. If an incident revolves a firearm, users must indicate whether the student was a student with a disability at the time of the incident and must select the disciplinary outcome relating to the firearm incidents. Any incident involving a student with a disability must be reported in this section. Disciplinary outcomes can include, again, ISS, OSS, expulsion, and removal by school personnel. If a student with a disability is removed through ISS, OSS, expulsion, or school personnel, the user must also indicate whether the incident involved drugs, weapons, serious bodily injury, or violation of school code of conduct. Users must indicate whether the student was expelled for a violence-related offense, including but not limited to murder, aggravated assault, battery, criminal threat, hazing, kidnapping, robbery, burglary, or stalking, or sex crimes such as rape, aggravated indecent liberties with a child, indecent solicitation of a child, sexual battery, sexual exploration of a child, and sodomy, child abuse, or terroristic threats. If the user indicates that the student is engaged in a violence-related offense and was subsequently expelled, the user must also indicate whether the educational services were provided during this expulsion. Services during expulsion. This category is referring to any other expulsion not reportable under the bullying, firearms, student with disabilities, or violence-related expulsion categories. If the user indicates the student was expelled, they must also indicate whether the educational services were provided during the expulsion. Please note, if using the upload feature to submit discipline data and a category does not apply to a specific incident, the unrelated column should be left blank. For example, if the school had no other reportable expulsions to upload, column AM on the template, then that column should remain blank. If a user uploads a yes, it indicates that the student was expelled with services. A no in this column would indicate that the student was expelled with no services. To indicate that no expulsion was reportable in this column, the cell should remain blank. Only the elements previously reviewed are required to be reported. All incidents that occurred between July 1st of 2021 and June 30th of 2022 must be reported. The submission window for the 2021-22 discipline data collection will be open on May 14th and will run until June 30th at 11:59 p.m. Schools should take into consideration any summer programming or cyberbullying that may occur before the June 30th deadline. If a building does submit prior to June 30th, they do have access to reopen their discipline data to add or edit discipline events. There are some very specific discipline definitions that are helpful when reporting. In-school suspensions are considered instances in which a child is temporarily removed from his or her regular classrooms for disciplinary purposes, but remains under the direct supervision of school personnel, including but not limited to children who are receiving services on their IEP, appropriately participate in the general education curriculum, and participate with children without disabilities to the extent that they would in their regular placement. Direct supervision means school personnel are physically in the same location as students under their supervision. Out-of-school suspensions, on the other hand, are instances in which a child is temporarily removed from his or her regular school for disciplinary purposes to another setting, like home or a behavior center. This includes both removals in which no IEP services are provided because the removal is 10 days or less, as well as removals in which the child continues to receive services according to his or her IEP. Please look very carefully at the underlined phrase in school suspensions. The U.S. Department of Education requires that these removals be submitted with the discipline data collection. This removal is not typically counted toward the special education discipline rule regarding the provision of services on the 11th day of removal. This can be somewhat confusing. The next definition is expulsion. Expulsion is an action taken by the local education agency to remove a child from his or her regular school for disciplinary purposes for the remainder of the school year or longer. In no case may an expulsion exceed 186 school days. Please include removals that are modified to less than 365 days. Interim alternative educational settings is another important definition. An appropriate setting determined by the child's IEP team or a hearing officer in which a child is placed for no more than 45 school days. This setting enables the child to continue to receive educational services and participate in the general education curriculum, although in another setting, and to progress towards meeting goals set out in the IEP. As appropriate, the setting includes a functional behavior assessment and behavioral intervention services, modifications to address behavior violations so that it does not reoccur. There have been many questions coming about regarding restorative justice practices. Restorative justice practices in place of punitive discipline practices such as ISS and OSS has shown to be an effective method for many schools to strengthen school culture, prevent bullying, reduce student conflicts, and reduces suspension and expulsion rates. The restorative justice principles and practices respond to student misconduct with the intent to repair harm and restore relationships among those impacted. The focus is on taking accountability for actions and righting the wrongs. Restorative justice is a practice that is intentional, comprised of specific strategies such as dialogue circles, peer mediation, and more. Many school mental health professionals have training in restorative justice as an approach. Restorative justice approaches and plans for specific students that are intended to helpfully teach and repair from the behavior incidents are not always considered ISS or OSS. In 2020-2021, Governor Kelly signed an executive order number 2053 that establishes an annual education report card for students in foster care. Part of the report card must include suspension and expulsion data for students in foster care. All incidents involving a student in the foster care system that result in ISS, OSS, or expulsion are required to be reported. In addition, and if an expulsion occurs, it must also be reported in the category Other Expulsions Not Reported Elsewhere to capture the educational services provided during the expulsion. A new report is available to ensure accuracy of those students submitted as engaged in the foster care system. It is vital that the local education agency has timely and accurate data. The timely and accurate data report is a component for the LEA's special education level of determination. The KIOS discipline data collection is noted in the Kansas APR District Timely and Accurate Data Report and is comprised of two components. One, that all district buildings must have submitted the discipline data collection in the KIOS web applications by the deadline for the school year, June 30th, and all students and incidents entered into the discipline data collection in the KIOS web application must have corresponding match for the IEP service lines. Gifted service lines are excluded in the SPED Pro web application on the date of the incident. That means their data has to match. This is really important for special education directors to pay attention to. You may find it very helpful to run reports to ensure the timely and accurateness of their data. Special education directors will want to keep track of whether buildings have submitted because the timely submission of the discipline data collection is one of those factors on the timely and accurate data worksheet and used as a component of the district's IDEA level of determination. In addition, this discipline data is used to calculate and identify districts for significant disproportionality and indicator for the rates of suspensions and expulsions. Both timeliness and accuracy must be addressed to earn the full KIOS discipline data points on the timely and accurate data report, which affects your district's level of determinations. Please specifically note row 7, which denotes all buildings submit by the deadline. Row 16, demonstrating the importance of information aligning between the KIOS and SPED Pro systems, and line 17 to ensure service locations match the type of discipline indicated. KIOS has a variety of helpful reports, 4 of which will be covered here. Prior to running discipline reports in KIOS, all accredited buildings in a district must be submitted. These reports are most helpful after all buildings have been submitted. Many districts put the completion of the district data collection on an end-of-year checklist for whomever is responsible for completing it. Typically, this is the principal, prior to that person leaving for the summer. District administration should also have access to view the discipline data and run the reports to check for accuracy. The first report is the discipline incident reported for students with no IEP services on the incident date. This report shows users which students and incidents do not have a corresponding match for IEP service lines. If a student is identified in this report, users must update the information in either KIOS or SPED Pro to accurately reflect the status of the student with disabilities to match the special education services line. If a student did not have an IEP in place on the date of the incident, then it should not be reported in KIOS as a student with a disability on that incident date. This report determines points awarded or deducted from row 16 on the TNA score sheet. The discipline incident reported for students with no IEP service on the incident date needs to be reviewed regularly. Any discrepancies listed on the report should be addressed by the district and may require the building principals, MIS clerks, and special education directors to work together to resolve any conflictual information. Another available discipline report is the Discipline Incident Duplicate Report. This report will display any duplicate incidents within the data collection for the selected school year. The entire discipline incident record must match for it to appear on the Discipline Incident Duplicate Report. Another report is the Discipline Foster Care Validation Report. This report shows users which students are not marked as a student engaged in the foster care system as identified in KSDE's foster care application. If a student is identified in this report, users must confirm that the students that were engaged in the foster care system at the time of the discipline incidents. This works similarly to the previous reports. A final report to draw your attention to is the Discipline Incident Detail Report. This report allows users to see all the discipline incidents entered by building. Please use this report to ensure the accuracy of your discipline data. Sometimes student information systems, SIS, inaccurately code students during a discipline incident that results in inaccurate data. For example, one district had all the discipline incidents marked as expulsions not reported elsewhere. The district did not have 423 expulsions, nor did it conduct 423 expulsion hearings. Districts should run these reports to ensure valid data has been submitted, especially if using the upload feature. Users have until June 30th to reopen their discipline data collection and correct the data before submitting. After June 30th, you will need to contact me via phone or email to reopen the discipline data collection for revisions if they're needed. Questions regarding discipline data collection can come to me, Shanna Bigler, at the Department of Ed. My contact information is on this slide, or to Brian Dempsey, the Assistant Director for the SETS team, Special Education and Title Services. Thank you for your attention to the discipline data collection topic and for ensuring that all your data is in timely and accurately.